Mm. So Allison Spivey Shattuck,
Yes.
I have noticed something.
I'm succumbing to a sniffle.
I have noticed something. First of all, I never, almost never, if I'm tired or sick, tell people on the air that I'm tired or sick.
I'm telling you now that I'm tired. People can hear it, I'm sure. But if I seem insane, it's because that's why. Because I felt like on the train home that I was like hallucinating today.
Okay. Well, you're succumbing to a sniffle. My feeling is this, is that if you're looking around today and there are nothing jumped out as the specific topic to talk about, whether or not it's these street takeover in Allston, Mass, or Hamas lovers in New York City who are jumping around, and because they took this other Hamas lover who was a student at Columbia, everybody's demanding he be released, and they're all big in a frenzy.
Right. He's being politically persecuted because they don't let people openly support terrorism on a green card in the United States.
Right. And you're not allowed to do that. And so, yeah. And so that's the problem, is that these are incremental steps into getting citizenship or whatever. And at any time, if you're in probation, which is, you can get tossed. So they're going to toss him. Now, I do believe that it's time for a total reset on what we allow in the streets. You look around now, you got these runners, these women runners, who yesterday were doing a relay race, and one woman hit the other woman in the back of the head with a baton, like busting her head open. Got street takeovers causing all sorts of havoc. You got these punks at Columbia who are taking over, and you got Jasmine Crockett, who's an idiot, and you got all these Democrats who are using the F word to show us that they're...
Oh, and like just the cities.
Well, right. Everybody,
like the crime, the homelessness, the drug use,
everybody.
the
but on the left, but it's not just politicians on the left. People are behaving badly, and I don't even know. I just saw this like hockey thing where some kid suckers another kid. Maybe that's not somebody on the left, but there's a whole bunch of people who are just behaving badly,
right?
In this country, but politically and culturally, they are on the left. And they have lost the way. I don't know what they're doing. Donald Trump is the adult in the room, by the way. He's absolutely the adult in the room. This is never... I mean, you've got people who are wantonly running after Teslas and, like, kicking them. And you saw this one dude who's angry, looked like Mark Maron, the comedian. Angry dude with his hair, long hair, and his glasses, like, kicking the Tesla. As far as I'm concerned... I don't see how it's not self-defense to hit the brakes slowly, walk out of the car, grab your 9mm, and blow that guy's freaking brains out. The only thing, I mean, there's this one piece of footage of one of the Hamas people at Columbia getting chased down by cops.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was also in Boston at Allston, there was a street takeover. And then finally the cops arrived on one of these side streets.
Uh-huh.
And a bunch of the like thugs and punks, I don't know where these kids are from. Maybe they're all college students. Maybe who knows? Walked down the street, like cocky, standing up straight, stopping the cops from driving down the street because they're walking in the middle of the street. I don't. At some point, what has to happen somewhere is that somebody has to hit the gas and send these punks a flying. It has to happen.
There has to be a possibility in these people's minds that something like that could happen.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's going to continue to happen, and it's going to continue to get worse. There are a whole bunch of people who don't want to believe or understand that making things be allowed causes more of them to happen, right? And, like, I mean, it's just a natural law that when there's no risk of anything bad happening to you from something, more people will do it. You know, a lot of people labor under this misconception. I think a big example is, you know, drug use versus drug prohibition. And people always use the example of the prohibition of alcohol in the United States to say like, oh, well, you know, people drank just as much. It just went underground and it was illegal and then it was bad. But the truth was that overall, on average, people drank less during the Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, a bunch of drinking did go underground and was, you know, funded and ended up funding criminal organizations. But on average, a bunch of people didn't drink because it was illegal. And the same thing is true of marijuana now. As we've made it legal, more people than ever do weed. Do you notice
course.
that? Like, it's so much more socially acceptable than it ever was. When I was in high school, I mean, I'm sure there were kids' parents that did weed, but we didn't all know about it. There wasn't really such a thing as edibles unless you made it. And it was the level of social acceptability around it has absolutely driven up the numbers of people who do it. I mean, it's the same thing with anything, even abortion. We can see, like, by the laws in Texas, I'm sure people are getting illegal abortions, but the number of abortions has gone way down overall.
Sure.
A bunch of people don't do stuff if it's illegal. A bunch of people don't do stuff if there's a threat of getting in trouble. A bunch of people don't do stuff if there's a threat of something bad happening to you if you do it, like with the blocking streets type of stuff.
Right, and is hiding under the guise of free speech. It's not free speech. If you're blocking a street, if you're blocking Commonwealth Avenue in Alston or Brighton, or even like, Beacon Street or whatever one of those streets, then you are creating terrorism. If you're blocking a highway, you're creating terrorism. If you're blocking any of these places, you're creating terrorism. If you're menacing Jews at the college, you're creating terrorism. So my feeling is this, is that you've got two obstructions here. One is that the municipal leaders are communists, are Soros-bought communists, and are for these forces that are taking over. And there's also the police who are sensitive because these police don't want to end up getting sued or having their lives destroyed, like Derek Chauvin, whatever. So in my perfect scenario for what was happening in Alston today, that you would have had the police, of course, they're blocking the police, but then you would have had police as close as they could get saying, you all have 30 seconds to disband from this intersection. If you don't disband in 30 seconds, we're going to use more enhanced techniques. And then they should say to everybody, if you're caught, if you're a bystander, this is with PAs, if you're a bystander in the intersection, please roll up your windows and lock your cars. If you're on foot, if you're a pedestrian just watching all of this mayhem, please go home. You have 30 seconds to do all this. Maybe they can project it against a wall. And then you send in somebody who's not going to have second thoughts, somebody not worried about a lawsuit, somebody who has total resolve, and somebody who really enjoys the work. And that is called the German Shepherd. And no, I'm serious. Send in 100 German Shepherds, and let's see how long these tough guys stay on those dirt bikes when Rapture and Talon have his neck in their jaws and are ripping him off of the dirt bikes. I'm all for that. I think would be absolutely a thing of beauty. I would watch it again and again and again. I would earmark my own tax money to pay for it. It would be a thing of beauty, because the German Shepherds, they don't care. You can say my dad's like a city councilor all you want, time out. The German Shepherds don't care. They don't care. These people should be completely friggin' mobbed by these dogs. They should be mauled. They should be torn asunder by these animals. I shouldn't call them animals, because I like the German Shepherds more than I like the people. And including all these Hamas people. Tell the Jewish students, guys, to find the high ground. The Shepherds are coming in, and they're going to go after these Hamas people, and they're going to tear them to pieces. And tear them to pieces. Absolutely. Tear them to pieces.
Yeah. But you know what I notice about all of this? Like, people blocking roads and causing destruction and cities being ruined and just, all these results of not having any standards of behavior anywhere anymore in our society, is that people with the opportunity and the means to are just going to self-exempt out of being in places like that, and they're going to go to places and congregate in places and avoid these situations completely, right? And I was thinking about this because I was in an office building today where it's locked up, and you have to card in to everything and, be an expected person who's supposed to be there, and you're on camera. There's nobody in there who's not supposed to be there, whose company has not paid for them to be in there. And hence, there's no mess, no overflowing trash can. The bathrooms are pristine. The kitchenette dishes are put away nicely. Everyone because there's consequence. You can't trash the place or steal
Mhm.
someone's laptop or anything. People leave their belongings unattended when they go to a meeting in another room. Like, there's no, it's the way people wish society was, essentially, right? Is people treat common spaces with respect. They're respectful of other people. They're quiet when they're taking calls. I mean, that's another one, like people taking calls in public. People's standards of behavior, and I think COVID was a big part of this, have just like dropped through the floor. They're in the basement right now, the way people choose to behave. People watching things with no headphones with the volume on
Yeah,
in
that
places.
blew me away.
But you'll notice that the more exclusive an environment you're in, anywhere that you have to pay to get into or that's a key card in or anything, people's standards of behavior return. And you know what that is? That's people deciding that they're going to opt to either like pay for or create with exclusivity the types of environments that they want to have, which sucks because that forces poor people and people without that opportunity to live in a hellscape, while people who are like rich or have opportunities are allowed to like opt out of the crummy public policies that they in public spaces and everything else that they help to create by having this lawless attitude. Once again, it's COVID all over again. The laptop class sits at home and doesn't have to deal with any of the consequences of any of the things that are happening around due to, like, you know, they just go out in downtown Newburyport and hold up their fist and, you know, good for us. They don't have to deal with the fallout of, like, not having police in the crummy neighborhoods because they've opted out of being around that or those neighborhoods because they had the opportunity to do so. Sucks to be you, people who don't have that opportunity, right? And it's just, they're divorced from the side effects, because when you do this where you choose not to have the government and public policy implement the things that people want, the people who have the money to do it are still going to find a way to get it. The people that don't have the opportunity to do it are the ones that get stuck with, you know, the burned down CVS and the Walgreens leaving the neighborhood. Like, that's, you know, nobody in Newburyport who did a Black Lives Matter protest is losing their pharmacy.
Right. Yeah, they've got all their stuff.
Yeah, nothing happened to them as an impact for any of the stuff that they did. But there's no, but they want to let all the things happen and not have any consequences for anything. But that only impacts other people who aren't them.
Well, exactly. And it shows just a lack of discipline, an impulse, no impulse control. You get to scratch the itch immediately, and it's like a navel gazing exercise. An exercise of navel gazing, and it doesn't like help anything. And like thought leaders, people who are in charge of institutions, do this stuff. This is David Hogg, who's the Democratic Party bigwig. This is what he said today in the statement. This is a statement about Trump. F Donald Trump and his authoritarianism. Trump needs young people to be afraid and shut down so we can't stand up against him. F him and F this administration. I'm sure you would want possibly a kid who graduated from Harvard to be able to write a sentence, not a run-on sentence and whatever. But it doesn't matter. This is a superficial country we live in, and there are so many. And I think that's one of the problems with college and with the way that the middle class operates. David Hogg, it shows a picture of him. He's got his hair looks good. His little beard looks good. He's dressed well. He's obviously had braces. All the stuff rich American kids get to have. You know, he has.
Yep.
All these trappings, and he's an airhead.
Yeah.
There's nothing to this dude whatsoever. All there is because you coached up all the stuff around him so much, is he's got an ego. He's got self-confidence, which is to many people a detriment. Self-confidence, when you're a fool, is not a good thing. And especially in the era of social media, self-confidence when you're a fool is not a good thing.
It leads to you constantly going out there and being an embarrassment.
Yes.
Like every day. Do you remember his pillow company?
Yes.
which still does, I think, took money from people, and I don't think still exists. They had people pre-ordering a non-existent pillow to fight Mike Liddell.
Right.
And, like, then he stepped away from the company and left other people holding the
Yeah,
bag,
he was like,
but whatever.
business is hard. I don't know.
I mean, lots of things are hard. Lots of things require making hard decisions. But, you know, if you're a liberal, everything's easy to you. Oh, don't do the mean thing. Don't throw the homeless people in jail. Don't do this. Don't stop people from, they're just riding their dirt bikes in the street. What's it to you? They're just doing this. They're just nothing matters. You don't have to really. But the truth is that we have rules for a reason. And when you take the rules away, when you take the guardrails away, people do more of the thing that wasn't allowed. Right? And it's just a law of nature. And it turns out a lot of times there were reasons why we had things in the first place. Did you know there's like a big dysentery outbreak in Portland now? Oregon?
I am not shocked.
Yeah, but it's because they're like just letting people live in the streets without sanitation. We're a first world country and we're letting people live like they're, you know, in the third world. There's no reason why there should be a dysentery outbreak in America. No reason, except that we're choosing to do it because we don't understand that public health rules and like not letting people, you know, lie around like this without access to sanitation in the streets we're like, why would we have rules against that? That's crazy. Why do we want to punish people who are already unhoused? You know what? Public policy is maybe too hard for you if you can't figure this stuff out.
Right. And which is why if you look at Gavin Newsom and what he's doing, going on the podcast with Charlie Kirk, and saying men shouldn't compete with women, and totally pulling the 180.
Yep.
It is, of course, shameless, but this is a guy who actually sees the landscape and is looking around and saying, everything's gone. Everything, the Democratic Party, Democratic politics are all gone. He sees that we're all standing in a crater. So are we going to stay in the crater and do performative Jasmine Crockett stuff and be Eric Swalwell and swear? Or what are we going to do in this crater? Because that's where they are. I think that Newsom is saying, I'm getting out of the crater. And people are saying, you're going to sell your... He's like, I'm getting out of the crater.
And so are the other people, like the Cuomos.
Well, yeah, right.
And
but people are giving Newsom crap because he, of course, was one of the main architects and behind all this progressive stuff. But he's like, no, I'm Gavin Newsom. I was somebody else when I effed your wife because I had to be. I was somebody else when I apologized to you for it. I was somebody else when I apologized to the people of California for it. And I'm going to go now and sell you all out because there's nothing left here. This is all gone and broken. So I'm going to be a new guy, and I'm going to start talking to these podcasts. And what I'm going to do is talk to more and more right-wing podcasts or whatever, middle road podcasts, the Rogan podcast. And when people say, hey, you're a hypocrite, I'm going to say, well, I was on a listening tour. I was listening to these podcasters. I am enlightened now. And sure, I'm changed. And he's going to try to retain some of the left for the nomination, because he can cherry pick and talk about his record, and he can do it with a straight face because he's a snake. And then he's going to tack to the middle and say, look at me. I have said that these things, we need to get back to basics. Don't I look a little bit like Ronald Reagan? I've got the Reagan haircut. I'm the guy. And I have, and it's not really about him specifically, but it's about his ability to survey the landscape and just say, oh, everything's dead here. All of this is dead. We have to go.
Yeah, but once again, total laptop class, coastal elite, whatever you want to call it, who he doesn't have to stay in the failed policies. He is getting himself out. He's not going to go down with the ship of his own bad policies. He's not going to deal with the consequences of this. Like, no, he just messed up the biggest state in the country, but like you expect him to take any fallout from that?
Exactly, and that's why if you're smart, you're noticing that the captain is slowly clink, 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 lowering his own lifeboat in the middle of the night. and getting in and slowly rowing away from the ship. And it behooves everybody else. Assume the captain knows something. Assuming he's seeing something out there. And if he's going away, scuttling away from the boat in his lifeboat, maybe it's time you do too.
But no, there's a bunch of them that have decided that the ship is the moral high ground and that they will sink with it.
Well, or there's just no more adults left. And so there's the stage with all the lights, and it's like Jasmine Crockett and the others just doing their thing. That's fine, but that's untenable. People hate these people. People hate, and I think one of the reasons why it's almost as if it's like when a sudden cabin decompression in an airplane is that they had their narrative, built their own narratives, and okay, Trump, Russia, fine, and people who hated him said, yep, it's not a real election anyway, it's not a real presidency, Trump, Russia, Trump, and then first impeachment when he talked to somebody, and this Vindman, this guy so punchable, because Trump talked to Zelensky and said, can you check Biden and see? Oh my goodness, it wasn't a perfect phone call. There's impeached. There we go. We got him. And then Mueller report. Here we go, guys. This is the Russia thing. And then, nope. And then, okay, a white supremacist attacking the Capitol, which is a frigging stretch, which wasn't Trump's thing anyway. And then, okay, let's impeach him again for something that he wasn't guilty of, which is starting the attack on the Capitol. And then once he gets out, and then they can blame him on COVID, and they feel that this noose, they're piling rocks on top of this guy, and then you get him for the box of documents, and get him for the paying off the hooker, and get him for causing this, and then Fannie Willis with the Georgia, and you've put now all these blocks on top of him, all these things on top of him. The guy is all good but going to be dead, and at the last minute they shoot at him. He out of God knows what instinct, because he's a walking iguana brain. Guy gets up and says, "Fight, fight, fight," and then he doesn't look back. Biden implodes in the debates. Trump doesn't look back, and I think that there was a certain comfort that they all had when he was under so many boulders that they said, we can be as bad as we want now. Mm-hmm. Look at the case we've built against this guy. 35,000 convictions for this, 35,000. We can do whatever we want. And suddenly, bang, whole thing gets blown up. They lose the election, and all they are now is badly behaving weird Sodom and Gomorrah, bottom-feeding alley people. And they're like, listen to our message. And the American people are like, no, we're good. We're good. Thank you. And look, there's nothing left. And it's their own doing. They didn't have to.
Of course it is.
They never had to do any of this stuff. They could have just had debates and fought for ideas and all the other stuff. They couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it because frigging social media means you get immediate validation for all the things you want, which means you're going to see what they were all waiting for is, you see Trump gets convicted 39 times, and then they were waiting for you and I to talk to on the Melrose Facebook group to our neighbors and say, you know what, you guys, you were right. Now he's a convicted felon. Now I see, wow, now the blinders are off my eyes. You guys were right the whole time. And the whole time the left was looking for validation, they were deprived of oxygen the whole time. And now they're just broken people. For broken people, which is why they're saying, now do you regret it? It's just what you voted for? I mean, you never, there was no time when Biden was, when he coughed up the SALT II treaty, or, even in Afghanistan, I was like, is this what you voted for? It's on my Facebook page?
No, you and I made, and even with, all the FJB stuff and the inflation and all these things, you and I never were public posting to other people who disagree with, we mostly just ignore people who disagree with us politically. We don't make pronouncements to them or tell them anything, or do you know what I mean? You and I make zero antagonistic Facebook posts where we're challenging our friends and relations about their views, and much less calling them Nazis or collaborators or telling them to come back to the right side of history or anything else. I don't understand why people feel so compelled to do that. I mean, they must just be so convinced of their own rightness that they can't imagine that it doesn't look good. I don't know. It's incredible to me, but I they've decided that they're not going to just even like see reality. It almost reminds me of, there's sort of that genre of movie, and I guess I kind of put like Home Alone in that category, or even like, what's that movie called with Tom Hanks? Big? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Where it's like the sort of kid in the candy store fantasy of like, what if as a kid you could do whatever you wanted? But like, that's the way the Democratic Party runs their party. Like, you called Trump the adult in the room at the beginning, but they're now just letting the children run it.
Right.
It's like Greta Thunberg all the way down. There's no adults left in the room because the adults are doing the Gavin Newsom thing or the Cuomo thing and trying to escape this failed thing, right? Like, now it's just crazy people and children running everything. So, they're doing the choose your fighter video stuff and then going on CNN and saying how great it is and it's creative and brilliant. You have these morons on The View. You have the girl on the Love is Blind thing. It's like all children. How can you say that you weren't thinking about Black Lives Matter? Like, maybe he's doing other stuff?
You familiar with Sam Cedar?
No.
He hosts a podcast with with the other chick who was happy that the girl got the volleyball in the face.
Oh yeah, I heard.
And they're like these nasty little progressives. Anyway, he did Surrounded, and I'm told that we have to. I was just given
good.
this.
We should
told
put it on later.
What?
Oh, you're putting it on now.
No, it's just this one person.
Oh, just a clip.
This one person sits down against Sam Cedar, who's a big Midas touchy kind of guy.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats, is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us, and I don't.
But morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference. So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
Well, I have a foundation for my morality.
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist? Utilitarian?
I don't really bother myself with being a consequentialist or a utilitarian.
It's always going to reduce you to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society. Okay. We have laws that we have decided as a society in a democratic way. And for some people, it's okay for it to be informed by their religion. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if tomorrow society comes together and we say, hey, trans folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
No, I would be against it, but I mean it would be.
It would be morally right under your view.
Not morally right. No. I'm not talking about morals.
Okay,
here.
so here's where I'm getting to, right? Religious foundations provide an ethical framework for one to live their life off.
I believe you can have an ethical framework without religion.
And if we take the leftist view to its logical tail end, to its extreme view, you have low reproductive birth rates. You have a reproductive dead end, so two men together can't reproduce unless they have to take from a healthy straight couple. Religion provides this foundation where you do prioritize the nuclear family.
So do you have a problem with gay people being married?
It's not that I have a problem. I just don't see a justification for why they ought to be gay outside of it just feels good. Can you give me another justification for it?
Well, I think maybe that's the way they were born.
Okay, what about pedophiles? Are they born that way?
They may be, yeah.
Okay, so should we let a pedophile off the hook since they were born that way?
No, I think we as a society has decided...
Should implement duties to prevent them from acting on that innate urge, correct?
Well, I think between consenting adults, it's a different thing than...
Okay, so you're okay with a
children.
45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old daughter as well? Incest?
No.
If they consent, you're okay with that?
No, I think society has also determined that it's like it's not beneficial.
Right. There's duties and obligations that we have. So religion provides those duties. Life isn't about
Well, but
freedom
also
and
I can-
exercising what you want.
I mean, well, you want to impose your religious doctrine
No,
on me,
because
and I don't want that.
you just admitted we need duties. We have responsibility as a society to keep us functioning, to keep us thriving. Your leftist view, the liberal view, doesn't provide anything besides it just makes me feel good. Religion does. So what's your argument?
I was hoping at minute 1, minute 2, and minute 3 to be more thrilled and hate Sam Cedar more, but he sounds like a standard progressive.
Yeah,
You know what? The know-it-all come at these people, whether it's from the right or left, is just not a great.
that person's right though. Like obviously there are things that we don't let consenting people do. There are that's true. And it turns out some of those things there are reasons for. Some of the reasons why society decides people shouldn't do stuff have a reasoning behind them.
Yes, obviously.
Right?
Some's based in science, and some based in just
Yeah, and some based in, how societies work and how people work and how families work, which are an important unit of your society, and all of these other things that lead to having a functional society that we've decided to abandon or like aren't important or that's just your opinion, man, about it. And it turns out some of them have profound impacts on the human psyche that maybe ancient people or other people or past philosophers knew some things about that just your opinion man guy didn't think of when he was saying I should get to do whatever I want and who cares. Because fundamentally, really, what it comes down to is when you say like, oh, I don't really think like religion or your religion or any religion should tell me what to do and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Your religion is I do what I feel like doing. Right. And that is a fundamental problem with progressivism.
Well, yeah, and I
Right?
think from
And,
men like
because-
Sam Cedar, it also comes with, in social situations, winning a room, especially when there's chicks around.
Well, right, but I think it's a fundamental point that is important to like what we were talking about too, because there are implications to things beyond like, well, I decided I want to do this, and who are you to tell me not to do X, Y, Z? Is that maybe that works like at a small scale, one person, you can't see a very compelling reason why so-and-so shouldn't be allowed to do X, Y, Z. But when you multiply it out society-wide, you get a total breakdown of everyone's like mental health, happiness, civilization, that it turns out there were reasons, there were guardrails around some of these behaviors that people have. And I'm not referring specifically to any ones he's mentioning in the video, but this is this same like libertine idea that leads to every public place in the city of Boston smelling like weed all the time.
Oh, totally.
That leads to dysentery in Portland. That leads to, because it's like, who are you to tell them what's best for them? Just let them shoot up at the safe injection site. No big deal. Blah blah blah. What's it to you if they do X, Y, Z? Well, sure, but then we don't have a society anymore. We have a bunch of random atomized individuals who are all driving themselves into despair because they lack any connection or cohesion in their society. And that when people do have a choice and they vote with like their money and where they buy houses and where they work and the spaces that they go into, when people do have a choice, they choose to be as far from the effects of that as humanly possible, right? But part of the problem is that our politicians specifically have chosen to be as far from regular people as humanly possible, right?
Of course.
They've created enclaves for themselves, primarily in Washington, D.C., but in, surrounding very, very wealthy suburbs also, where they are insulated from the effects of any of this stuff because money is a huge insulator. Right?
Oh, yes.
Like money and these specific types of jobs where you don't have to like interact with people who aren't like you, they insulate you completely from any of these effects, which is why they can believe things like this. It's similar to how we talked a little bit about like the men and women's sports. We can play that View clip if we want, the insanity here. But people can believe the insanity that like men don't have certain physical characteristics that women don't have because they're insulated from the impacts of men's physicality. They've never arm wrestled a man. The women on The View. Because if they had, they would know that it's basically impossible for women to arm wrestle a man. Even weak men can beat very strong women in arm wrestling.
Right.
There's a tiny bit of overlap between some very, very strong women and some very, very weak men. But mostly the man's going to win every time. And but they're insulated from the impacts of it because they haven't felt it in real life. So they don't understand that this is a real thing. But similar to that, the people in Washington, D.C. and elites in general, right, are completely, they're living in their own little universe. Right? And I mean, I think about the Chris Murphy story. Did you cover any of this today, the Chris Murphy thing?
With his new girlfriend?
Yeah, he has his new girlfriend. She does the social media stuff. She used to be married to a guy who was a staffer for Pete Buttigieg. But there's a reason why all these people are so incestuous. And it crosses both sides of the aisle, by the way. Lots of right-wing people date or sleep with or whatever left-wing people in D.C. They're all together. I mean, Gavin Newsom was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, as we know. But they're in their own little social club in Washington, D.C., hanging out together around other people who think like them, act like them. They are not dealing with the consequences of any of this stuff.
No.
It's just like the women on The View sitting here and saying that, it's fine to let boys play girls and sports. It doesn't impact them. You're not getting hit in the face with a volleyball.
No.
You're not getting knocked over on the soccer field by some dude. And they've never even felt what a man's strength feels like to a woman.
No, they just want to wrap it up in their minds that it's a perfectly, wonderfully generous and compassionate thing to do, to say it's fine, and so it's nice and equal. But that's
why our government did not conceive Washington, D.C. to be this way. That's why our government did not conceive a nation that's run by a bunch of aristocrats. Mm-hmm. That's why they conceived a nation that's run by its own citizens. The people go to Washington, D.C., do some stuff, and then go
back
home,
to the farm. Go
back to if you're Ed Markey, your freaking ice cream truck, right? But instead, these people have formed their own social club. They're all in politics as a profession to some degree or another, whether it's as commentators, news, staffers, lobbyists, politicians, whatever it is, they're all in it together, and they don't feel any impacts from the stuff that they're doing.
Here's Dylan Mulvaney with The View.
Last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he thinks that trans athletes competing in girls' and women's sports was deeply unfair.
Can you imagine the tone she's using? Last week, Gavin Newsom said it was deeply unfair, and she has a quizzical look. Deeply unfair. Wow.
Now, I want to hear what you think, because I'll tell you what I think, too.
Yeah. The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I was on a soccer team, but I assigned myself as the nurse. So I sat with the Band-Aids. And so, in the words of Wicked, I am not that girl. But a dear friend of mine, Skylar, he is a trans athlete. His handle's Pink Manta Ray. That's someone who I really look to for guidance. And I think that is what's tricky, is now stepping in this identity. I'm still a baby trans. I've only 3 years in. Tomorrow's my anniversary.
Your friend went your friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Her friend.
Her friend went from female to male and is competing with other males.
So Gavin doesn't have a problem with that.
Well,
I don't believe that.
Also, nobody has a problem with that.
Right, but I also don't believe that this is happening.
I think part of the problem that the trans community is facing, and it's the same problem that women face, is if you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works. So when you come in and you say, these are men,
competing
against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen Female athletes, they know what they're doing.
Wait a second. You just said that men can't possibly understand. Well, this is about men interloping.
Well, right. And athletes actually do understand. I was reading about like different Battle of the Sexes competitions that have been done, and like one of them was that the Williams sisters said they could beat like any man ranked under 200, and like the 203rd ranked tennis player like beat them both in one afternoon after like drinking beers and playing golf. Like it's and that's not to say they're not good athletes.
Yeah.
It's actually, what I'm saying is they're really, really excellent athletes, right? But that being an excellent athlete for a woman is a completely different thing than being an excellent athlete for a man.
Of course.
It's completely different. And to say that is not doing a disservice to women. Saying that is creating a world that's fair for women. But once again, just divorced from reality, divorced from the reality of men's and women's bodies, and divorced from the consequences of having to do any of this.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue. The same for me as when people say, oh, you know, I don't know how I feel about you. You do. God doesn't make mistakes.
No.
And the challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That's what God is looking to see, how you treat people.
Yeah.
That's what...
Dylan Mulvaney, to his credit, is thoroughly confused by what people
I
said.
liked your answer.
Thank you.
Oh, talk about... I'm so sorry that women don't get to have any shows where it's anything more than just vibes and, yes, that's right, girl. Yep, you belong. That's right. No, it's on that. Oh, you are. Women are slaves. I'm sorry. Oh, God. What is the, okay, should we go to the chat?
I guess we'll head to the chat.
Two messages, ready?
Okay.
Hey, Tom, it's Mike.
You know what, figure that I can't believe I didn't use my drop at all, else.
From the mind of Mindy Kaling.
That's what women get. That's all you guys get. That's what you go, oh, wow. This is about your speed. Just don't worry. It's from the mind of Mindy Kaling. You look up to her. You think she's great. She's... All right, let's go back to Michael. Hang on.
Michael in Cincinnati.
Hey, Michael.
I'm also calling you out from your afternoon show like Tim and Canton.
Yes.
Man, you definitely don't know anything about music. Prince is one of the greatest guitar players of all time. He's fantastic. And by the way...
Hey, hold on. That's what I said. I said that that's not his main thing, but he's incredible at it. I gave Prince huge props. I was asked like what my top 3 guitarists were today, and I picked Jeff Beck. I wanted to pick Eddie Van Halen, but I thought that was too hackish. Jeff Beck and who else did I pick? I forgot who I picked. But anyway, a couple others. So I know my share of guitarists. There's no doubt about that. But I also said Prince was a surprisingly good guitarist, and he really is. And Paul McCartney I put up there too. This is, you know what?
Afternoon show like Tim and Canton. Man, you definitely don't know anything about music.
Bull.
Prince is one of the greatest guitar players of all time.
He's good.
He's fantastic. And
yes.
By the way, I damn near fell off the treadmill at the gym when you said, I like that black lady too.
Yeah.
Dude, you make me laugh. That's why I keep listening to all your shows. Keep it up.
Thank you, Michael. I was right. It was the black woman, they called her Mother something, who was this great blues guitarist. She's great. I forgot. No, I was right. And by the way, Michael, I said that Prince was good. But I was surprised that he was good because that's not his main vocabulary. What's his main vocabulary? Vocation. That's right. Exactly. His main vocation was to be a singer. I thought, but he's one of these guys I think who could probably play every instrument. Not even I think. I know he can. He was a musically brilliant guy. But so yes. But I have my feelings on guitarists.
I read a take online that I'm not like educated enough musically to have an opinion on, but I'm curious your take on it. That somebody was saying because of things like Guitar Hero and YouTube tutorials and parents buying kids private lessons that we've now created like the most technically gifted generation of guitarists ever, but without any like creativity or.
Right. I said this when I first met you, Alice. Guitar Hero should be illegal. Nobody should ever be allowed to play it.
Guitar Hero should be illegal.
Yeah,
That's why
it's always. You don't get to do the pretend all the faces and do the weird stuff unless you're really doing something that causes that. And if you're playing Guitar Hero, you're not. It's just fake. It's LARPing. It should be illegal. The best 30 people at Guitar Hero should receive 35 lashes per year for doing that. It is a terrible, horrible thing. We should be as a country, we should have been ashamed of that. The people who play the guitar have to learn. Those of us who had to learn to play the guitar, who aren't naturals, had to learn and hurt your fingers and do all sorts of other things and learn how to do stuff. And it was painstaking to learn to play the guitar. Freaking guitar. Here, don't worry. We'll make the sounds come out and you just pretend to rock and roll. F you. Oh, you pussy generation, you, Alice.
I saw on Twitter somebody try to ask Governor Healy about bringing in more pipelines from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, this guy asked her point blank while she's getting into her car. She's not answering any questions. Like, this is the governor of the state.
Can you imagine people are getting like $1,000 gas bills and she won't talk about putting in pipelines?
No, and she's not. She just ignores this guy, a voter.
Natural gas. She, of course, ignored them. Climbed, because she had to climb into the giant SUV.
Yes.
That I'm pretty certain was not electric. And shut the door.
Yep.
Boy, this is the easiest election coming up. And we better hope that the Mass GOP has its act together.
Let's hope. This is Mass Fiscal put up this video.
Governor, are you still bragging about shutting down 2 pipelines? Governor, will you consider piping into Pennsylvania the second largest natural gas in the country?
Oh, did you? Okay. Let me just put this in the back. Thanks.
Governor, will you consider natural gas?
She's asked her assistant to put her jacket in the back. So she can hear and talk.
Governor.
Remarkable. But this is what you get.
But yeah, I wouldn't make any big bets on the Mass GOP. No offense.
No.
I mean, I support them. I want them to.
I mean, who do we have? Who are we running? Are
we running anybody?
Are there Republicans? Is Richard Tassay available anymore?
No, he's on to greener pastures.
We can't have Tassay because he's homophobic, was the last thing I heard 12 years ago.
Tea Party Tassay.
Oh.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening tonight. I'm sorry I'm sick and sniffly. It's terrible. Appreciate you guys. If you
hold the phone.
What?
Guys, had a great talk last night, and all you can eat podcast with my friend Menners. Those of you listening to KMS will know. He's also got a full name. He's in Australia. He is a play-by-play guy for cricket. He's also been a restaurant owner. He was in the restaurant business really since he became an adult. And then like 15 years ago, him and his buddy bought a business. They had a vision. They were very disciplined. The website is still up, like on Facebook. The Facebook page is up. Mm-hmm. They were on point in this place, and COVID kind of nuked them at the end. But we had a great talk. I knew he's a smart guy, so it was really fun to talk to. It was really fun to talk to. He answered the questions. Afterwards, we just chatted for a bit, and he had mentioned that it was nice to go talk about something different for a bit. Here's a little bit of that.
No, but there was one actor. I'm just going to get his name. I think it's James Cromwell.
Okay. Yeah, big tall guy.
He was big tall guy. He was in like First Contact.
Yes.
He was in Babe
the Pig. Yes.
And yeah, James Cromwell. He's still alive. And
is he an Australian? James Cromwell.
What was that?
Is he an Australian?
No, he was an American. So he was out here doing a play in Sydney and staying nearby the cafe. He ended up coming almost every day for 3 months while he was in Sydney. So I got to know him quite well. He got quite friendly with some of the waitresses in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was known near them all. But
and then there are parts of this interview that's 36 minutes long where I don't step all over everything Manners is saying as well. So I would definitely say
I can't wait to listen to
I really enjoyed talking about this. I can get when it comes to the X's and O's of something like that, I am just so into it, and I learned a lot from talking to him. It was great.
Anyway, if you want to join us in the live chat on Patreon each night, that's at patreon.com/burnbarrel. There's also some extra content there each week. You can also listen to an ad-free RSS feed. If you like listening for free, burnbarrelpodcast.com has links to places to listen.
From the mind of Mindy Kaling,